My 8-year-old granddaughter Maya stood on my doorstep, clutching the worn, one-eyed teddy bear I'd given her as a baby. Her own eyes, usually bright with the wild curiosity of childhood, were wide and dark with a fear that hollowed me out. She didn't run into my arms like she usually did. She just stood there, a tiny, trembling statue. "Grandma," she whispered, the words catching in her throat. "I'm scared of Dad." Before I could respond, my son Kevin's car pulled up, and the look he gave me, not of concern, but of cold, hard annoyance, told me this wasn't a tantrum. This was a confession, and I was the only one who would listen. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Go ahead and drop your city in the comments. Where are you all tuning in from? It's a comfort knowing you're out there. My name is Sarah, and I live in Bend, Oregon, where the air smells like pine and the mountains watch over you like old, sleeping giants. I was a pediatric nurse for 30 years before I retired. Now my life is my garden. I find a deep, quiet peace in nurturing things, in helping them grow strong and vibrant. It's what I've always done for my patients, for my flowers, and most of all, for my son, Kevin. After my husband passed, it was just the two of us for a long time. When Kevin married his first wife, our family grew, and when Maya was born, my world bloomed in a way I never thought possible. But their marriage didn't last. 2 years ago, Kevin met Crystal. She swept in like a weather front, all sleek lines and sharp angles, a stark contrast to the gentle rhythms of our lives. Crystal was a wellness strategist and life coach, and together, she and Kevin launched a brand called Ascend Wellness. Their lives, and by extension Maya's, were transformed. Kevin's warm, comfortable home became a minimalist showcase of white walls, empty surfaces, and cold, hard furniture. It felt less like a home and more like a high-end asylum. The first time I visited, I asked where all of Maya's toys were. "We're practicing emotional minimalism, Mom," Kevin explained, though the words sounded like they belonged to Crystal. Attachments to material objects create psychic clutter. Maya is learning to find joy in experience, not in things. The red flags were more like giant flashing billboards. Maya, once a happy, chattering girl who loved to paint messy pictures and build elaborate Lego castles, became quiet and watchful. She started using their sterile vocabulary, telling me she was processing a negative emotion or trying not to inhabit a scarcity mindset. She was 8. My weekly visits with her became tense. She'd look over her shoulder before accepting a cookie, as if she were committing a crime. When I confronted Kevin, he'd just parrot Crystal's empty philosophies. "We're reparenting, Mom, breaking generational patterns of emotional dependency." He said it with such conviction, but his eyes were dull, exhausted. He was a stranger reciting a script, and Crystal was the director, writer, and producer of their sad little play. The day Maya showed up on my porch, terrified of her own father, was the day I knew I had to rip that script to shreds. She finally broke down in my arms, her small body racked with sobs. "Daddy and Crystal took Barnaby," she cried into my shoulder, clutching her old teddy bear. Barnaby was a stuffed badger she'd had since she was 3. "They said I'm too old for him. They said he was a crutch. Daddy put him in a black bag. I'm scared he'll put my bear in a bag too, Grandma. I'm scared they'll say my feelings are clutter and put them in a bag." A rage so pure and cold it felt like ice water flooding my veins washed over me. This wasn't wellness. This was cruelty. This was a systematic dismantling of a child's soul, piece by precious piece. After a tense exchange where I insisted Maya stay the night, Kevin finally left, his jaw tight with anger. That night, I held my sleeping granddaughter and declared a silent war. My nursing instincts kicked in. I began my investigation with the precision of a differential diagnosis. The source of the infection was Crystal, so I started there. Her Ascend Wellness social media was a curated hellscape of inspirational quotes overlaid on pictures of sunsets, green smoothies, and her and Kevin in matching yoga poses. It was all about living your truth and monetizing your authenticity. That last phrase stuck with me. I dug deeper, past the public profiles and into the darker corners of the internet. I found forums, Reddit threads, and disgruntled blog posts from people who had been involved with the larger company Ascend was affiliated with. It was a classic multi-level marketing scheme, a pyramid scheme dressed up in yoga pants and promises of spiritual wealth. The business model was predatory, encouraging members to exploit their personal relationships to build their downline. Then I found it. A link buried in a forum leading to a private blog Crystal maintained for their inner circle of recruits. It was password protected. I tried all the usual things, birthdays, pet names, nothing. I sat back, thinking about Maya's terrified face. I thought about how they saw her not as a child, but as a project. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I typed in the password. Project Maya. Access granted. The contents of the blog were more horrifying than I could have imagined. It was a series of video diaries, a case study documenting their reparenting methods on Maya. I watched, my hand clamped over my mouth to stifle my sobs, as my son and his wife filmed my granddaughter's distress. There were videos of them coaching her through panic attacks that they themselves had clearly induced. There was a clip of them taking Barnaby the badger, with Crystal's voiceover explaining how severing unhealthy attachments is crucial for psychic liberation. Maya's heartbroken cries were presented as a necessary breakthrough. In the most recent video, they discussed their upcoming presentation. They had rented a prominent booth at the Bend Fall Festival, a huge community event that drew people from all over the state. They were going to use their case study, the footage of my granddaughter's suffering, as the centerpiece of their pitch to recruit new members into their scheme. They were going to sell her pain for profit. I downloaded every video, every blog post, every scrap of evidence. My hands were shaking, but my mind was perfectly clear. I wasn't just going to get my granddaughter back. I was going to burn their entire fraudulent world to the ground. I called my friend Carol, a retired family law attorney. I laid out the whole story, sending her the files. Her voice was grim. Sarah, this is psychological abuse, plain and simple. What they're doing is monstrous. In Oregon, this kind of evidence is incredibly powerful in an emergency custody hearing. And publicly, well, a town like Bend doesn't take kindly to this sort of thing. We formulated a plan. A public stage deserves a public execution. They wanted to use the Bend Fall Festival as their launch pad. I was going to make it their graveyard. If you've ever had to fight for someone you love, hit that like button. It's a battle that takes a piece of you, but it's one you can't afford to lose. The Bend Fall Festival was a cheerful explosion of autumn. The air smelled of cider donuts and roasting corn. Families wandered through craft booths, and children squealed with delight on hayrides. And there, in the middle of it all, was the Ascend Wellness booth, a sterile white tent that seemed to suck the color out of its surroundings. Crystal stood on a small portable stage, microphone in hand, looking radiant and serene. Kevin stood beside her, a proud, smiling disciple. A small crowd had gathered, drawn in by their polished good looks and promises of a happier life. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my tablet clutched in my hand, my heart hammering against my ribs. Parenting isn't about coddling, Crystal said, her voice smooth and persuasive. It's about sculpting. It's about clearing the emotional clutter that holds our children back. We had a challenging case in our own lives, a child deeply attached to negative patterns and material crutches. Kevin nodded sagely. But with our methods, we've seen a total transformation, a journey from dependency to liberation. That was my cue. I strode forward, pushing through the small crowd until I was standing right in front of the stage. I held up the tablet. I had a powerful Bluetooth speaker in my bag. Are you talking about this transformation? I asked, my voice trembling slightly but ringing out in the clear autumn air. Before they could react, I hit play. The video filled my tablet screen, and the audio, amplified by the speaker, blasted out across the plaza. It was the video of them taking Barnaby the badger. Maya's small, pleading voice filled the air. "Please, Daddy, no. I love him." Then came Crystal's cold, clinical response, now stripped of its wellness jargon and laid bare for what it was: pure cruelty. Love is a form of attachment, Maya. It's a dependency. You need to transcend it to be free. Let him go. Then my son's voice, the one that broke my heart into a million pieces. "Your grandma spoils you. This is for your own good." The festive atmosphere of the fall festival froze. The crowd went silent, their smiles vanishing, replaced by looks of shock and disgust. People pulled out their phones, not to take pictures of the festival, but to record the horror show unfolding at the Ascend Wellness booth. Crystal's face crumpled, her serene mask shattering into a million pieces. Kevin lunged for the tablet, his face a mess of panic and rage, but it was too late. I stepped back, holding the tablet up for everyone to see. The evidence was undeniable. The monsters were exposed. The aftermath was a swift and brutal firestorm. The videos went viral in the local Bend community groups. Child Protective Services launched an immediate investigation, and armed with my evidence, Carol filed for emergency custody. Kevin and Crystal didn't even fight it. They were buried under an avalanche of public shame. The MLM company publicly disavowed them, and their wellness empire crumbled overnight. Last I heard, they left town, their fraudulent dream in tatters. I got full custody of Maya. The healing is slow, a delicate process, like nursing a frost-bitten rose back to health. There are still nightmares, but there is also progress. Last week, we spent the whole afternoon in the garden, covered in dirt, and her laughter sounded like wind chimes. Her room is now a glorious, cluttered explosion of art supplies, books, and a whole family of stuffed animals, with Barnaby the badger and his one-eyed teddy bear friend sitting in a place of honor on her pillow. I look at her, truly seeing the vibrant, messy, beautiful soul she is, and I know the fight was worth it. I lost my son, or at least the son I thought I knew, but I saved his daughter. And in the quiet sanctuary of my garden, as I tend to my flowers, I know that some roots are so poisoned they can't be saved. But new seeds can always be planted, and with enough love, anything can learn to bloom again. If this story hit home for you, hit the like button, comment 1 below, and share your own story of resilience. And please, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for listening.